Thank you for turning to page 121. Today we're going to go in the Wayback Machine to June of 1983. And Dragon number 74 was on the stands. This guy came out in June of 83. And we're going to take a look through it today and why Dragon was so important to those of us who were gaming at the time. Love this magazine. Look forward to it every month. So we're going to take a look inside today, cover to cover. Also, just a quick reminder, subscribers, please slow down a little bit. I'm assuming it's summer, but if anybody is on the fence or you know someone who is, come on, nudge them over. Let's keep the channel growing. Also, I want to thank all my subscribers. I want to thank all my patrons. And if you've taken a look at Patreon, if there's anything you can do to help out to grow the channel there, that would be very appreciated. That's it. And the commercial. Back to June 1983. We're all playing video games, listening to new David Bowie, and enjoying Dragon number 74. Dragon 74, June of 83. Good year, good month. Good issue. I took a look at a Boule out of here a few weeks ago, but we're going to go through the whole magazine today. So there's an excellent cover, one of my favorite covers of the vintage Dragons. And the very first thing we get is the inside cover, an ad for Harn, the dawn of a new fantasy world, brought to us by Columbia Games. I had some Harn stuff. I looked it over a little bit. I think I ended up trading it away to a buddy of mine. It wasn't really for me, unfortunately. Rollmaster, ICE's complete fantasy role-playing game system. If you want charts, that's where this is for you. Clause Law, Arms Law, Character Law, Spell Law, and Rollmaster. If you want charts and tables, if you want to throw dice, that's your game. Played a little bit of Clause Law and Arms Law and Spell Law under a DM at that old club we used to be in. And it was slow play. Okay, contents from June of 83 right here. And then the nice masthead. And then Kim Mohan giving us his opinion on A Quiet Celebration. And then Out on a Limb. These are letters to the editor that they would publish. Going to the Sorcerer's Scroll. War Horses and Barding, from light to heavy, leather to plate, by Gary Gygax. Copyright 1983, E. Gary Gygax. This is some more stuff that would show up in Unearthed Arcana in 85. We got a lot of those rules play tested through Dragon Magazine and getting feedback and such, and I, for one, appreciated it. We did use the War Horses and Barding. We still do. On this article, we haven't been rolled into Unearthed Arcana. We use it out of Unearthed Arcana. Enter the Victory Games world of James Bond, 007. Yes, we had 007. We had two movies come out that year. We had Octopussy come out under the legitimate, quote-unquote, Bond. And then we had Never Say Never Again with Sean Connery back as Bond. Octopussy had Roger Moore, but Sean Connery was back as James Bond in Never Say Never Again, which was kind of a, hey, we're in dispute with court over who owns the rights, so I think we'll just go ahead and knock out a Bond real quick. Neither movie was very good. I think Octopussy is one of the worst Bond films ever made. There are unfortunately a few that are worse than that, in my opinion. And Never Say Never Again had its moments, but by and large didn't deliver. My opinion. Continuing on the article, we go to Magic Horse Barding, Elfin, Chainmail for Unicorns or Griffins, and then Barding for other types of steeds. And then some tips, seeing is believing, just some more opinions there, and then entertaining developments. Gary was working hard on the D&D cartoon, and he was also trying to push a movie. The movie didn't happen, of course, until 2000, well after Gary wasn't around interacting with D&D, but we did get one. In fact, we just got one recently. Still haven't seen it. Got to get around to it. Introducing Wizards, a totally new approach to fantasy gaming from Avalon Hill Game Company. That's kind of neat. Avalon Hill, seeing an opportunity to climb on board the D&D train. Took their shot. I liked Avalon Hill. I played Avalon Hill before I ever played D&D. Lehman's Tiny Hut by Leonard Lakofka and Brad Neistel. Bureaucrats and politicians. Yes, if you want to play an NPC bureaucrat or politician, this is the article for you. Never really used that, unfortunately. Then we have Star Trek: The Correspondence Game. This again was licensed. This is after Wrath of Khan had been out in '82. This is from Pleasant Drive, Charlotte. I don't see the name of the company. And then the article continued on about being a bureaucrat or a politician. And Land Dragons, Wingless Wonders from a Faraway Land by Ronald Hall. We use the heck out of this. I love land dragons. I love dragons without wings, the Eastern type dragons, to those of us from the United States. Or there are plenty of Norse dragons that didn't have wings, that sort of stuff. This was a nice article, and we ended up, I as the DM threw a couple of these in, and I ended up facing a few in a couple of games I was a player in. So I like this a lot. We got the Arak, the Scintillating Dragon, the Night Dragon, and then from Ed Greenwood in an unrelated article, the Electrum Dragon. And then Disaster Has Struck, Aftermath, Fantasy Games Unlimited. You can crawl through the rubble. Bushido from Fantasy Games Unlimited. You can play a samurai in feudal Japan. Shogun was still a thing, even though the Shogun novel was published in the 70s and the miniseries came out in 1980. There was still big influence on Japanese items and role-playing and comic books. Looking at you, Wolverine, in the early 80s. Seven Swords by Ed Greenwood, Blades of the Realms. I actually liked this article a lot. I ended up adapting a couple of these swords and putting them into my Greyhawk campaign. Now we get a spiffy little ad for Star Frontiers. There's only one planet in the galaxy where you can buy Star Frontiers game. Aren't you glad it's Earth? Actually, that might be truth in advertising. As far as I know, Earth is the only place you can buy Star Frontiers games. From TSR. We continue on with the Seven Swords from Ed Greenwood, and then we get an article here, Ye Gads, Horus the Avenger, Gods and Demigods by Dragontooth. Dragontooth had some pretty nice looking creatures back in the days, some lead figures as we used to call them. The Best of Rel Powertha, now in boxed sets. I have that box set for sure. Each set contains 10 figures and retails for $8. Yes, lead figures back in the day, a single figure would go for about 79 cents to about $1.10, and some of the giants would get you up around $2.50 to $3.50, and then some of the bigger dragons and stuff you get as high as $6. So yes, that was a thing. Yeah, I loved this box set. I still have the box. I'm sure the figures are well mixed into my collection by now. Continuing on the Blades article, we get to a Star Trek the role-playing game Klingon Character Supplement by FASA. These are the guys that started out as a Traveler licensee and went on to create BattleTech. And we'd be about a year away from seeing the first BattleTech offerings in 1983. BattleTech came out in '84. Finishing up the article for the swords from Ed Greenwood, and then there's more where this came from. You can go ahead and buy back issues of Dragon Magazine right from TSR. Are you a cold-blooded adventurer? Try our Reptilians. These are just different reptile creatures you could use as PCs. I love the siege equipment. A trebuchet S14 right here would have run you $12. $12 is a lot of money back in '83, I have to tell you. $5 for this guy. Let's see, S20, the Chinese rope catapult, $3.50. Roman ballista would have been $9. There were a lot of different things. This is from Rapham out of Ontario, Canada. There were a lot of things on sale in the early 80s for D&D lead figures. My wife and I were dating at the time, and sometimes if we both had a day off together, we'd jump in the car and we'd hit a couple of hobby stores and go lead figure shopping, and then we'd paint. Yes, I was fortunate enough to be dating a girl who played D&D, but also liked painting the figures. And now, of course, I married her, so yay. The Ecology of the Boule by Chris Elliott and Richard Edwards. I did the Ecology of the Boule a couple weeks ago on the channel. I love this article, love the Boule. New from GDW for Origins in Detroit, July 14th through the 17th of '83. And we're offering up the Brotherhood, the Gang of Organized Crime, Campaign Trail, Game of Presidential Elections, Assault, Tactical Combat in Europe, Tarsus, World Beyond the Frontier. I love that box set. I featured that on the channel about 2 years ago. The Near East, Europa 19, the Normandy Campaign, Traveler Adventure, hardcover volume 2, Blue Max, World War I Air Game, and Journal of the Traveler's Aid Society. They are on issue 17 at this time. Love GDW. Tracing Thrush's Nest. The place, London. The time, 1894. And this game is for Thrush. Did not play it. Let's see, is it a computer? It talks about the Napoleon of Crime, James P. Moriarty. RuneQuest, Pavis, Threshold to Danger from Cassium. Didn't know that one either. In Trouble, Say Uncle. So we had Thrush and Uncle from The Man from Uncle. The place, New York City. The time, now. UNCLE, The Man from Uncle. Big, very popular spy show in the early to mid 60s. Villains and Vigilantes from Fantasy Games Unlimited. Used to play V&V. Liked it quite a bit, but when I found Champions, I liked Champions more. Sorry, V&V. Still have one or two of these things lying around. Continuing out the Uncle theme, and then we go to Game Grid Sheets, the original and the largest. These guys were on Broadway in Oakland, California. Indicia Games. Mountains and Minutes Fantasy Series, Castle Sections and Walls. This stuff was tough to come by back in the early 80s. I've always used lead figures since my earliest days of playing D&D. Literally, I think the very first day I played D&D, we had some lead figures and we used them. I've always been a figure guy and a terrain guy, but terrain didn't really come into its own really until the late 90s, early 2000s. Once we started getting Dwarven Forge out there, and then some other companies saw that there was money to be made, and now, of course, in this era of 3D printers, and I, of course, make my own out of plaster from these fine molds from Hearst Arts. Good hobby, good side hobby for this. Mystery and Adventure in the Rel Partha tradition. Rel Partha had some beautiful figures. I believe I have that unicorn. I could not tell you off the top of my head if I have the others. Love Rel Partha. Going back to Rel Partha, I think these are still available. There's a company that has the molds, and I believe if you Google them, you'll find them. They're still around. Spying on the Spies, Author's Notes, A Struggle with Resources. So we have more from the Uncle, big on spies in this particular issue. And then we have Alert Force, a tense, exciting game as terrorists attack nuclear-armed bombers for $5. Close simulations in Northbrook, Illinois. Huh. Northbrook, that's about an hour from me. There Are No More Barriers, Time Ship, a role-playing game of time travel and adventure. This was Yaquinto Publications out of Dallas, Texas. Didn't know that one. Hobby House, free lead figure. Have that, little dude. More on the Uncle article here, and a proof for use with Traveler. Lee's Guide to Interstellar Adventures, Volume 1. Unfortunately, never got a Volume 2. And the Undersea Environment, both by Game Lords. Game Lords put out some really good stuff in their very brief time of existence. Judge Dredd, he plays for keeps. This appearing in, he's as shown in White Dwarf Magazine, and let's see. I never played Judge Dredd. I've read a few of the comic books that it came from. I do like to check these hobby store listings to see if any of the ones near me are. Illinois. Bears, never was there. Friends, never was there. Games Plus, of course, I was there many, many times. Had the last jump point there, and they are still around very much. And Hobby Chest, I got to look up and see if they're still around. And Lyle's Hobby and Craft Center, as far as I know, they are still around, but they're mostly just models these days. Going to Vicarious Participator, Take the Middle Ground in Role-Playing Style. So this is just a how-to by Louis Pulsifer. Just how to run your fantasy role-playing game, how to be a more effective player and GM. The Wizard's Corner, Saskatoon's Fantasy Role-Playing Game Center. These guys are in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada. Super Game, the game you've been waiting for. Revised and expanded. Dealers welcome at DAG Design, Santa Monica, California. Lost Worlds, there were a lot of these around. I never bought any of them. Lost Worlds is exciting book games. These were pamphlet-sized books that were out. I never really had an occasion to thumb through one. There were always something on the shelf tempting me that I ended up never putting the money into. Let me know if you played it. I have no idea if it was a good system or not. It's a base. It's a plate. It's the combat computer. Yes, you could take this out of your Dragon magazine right here, and you would have a wheel to calculate what you need to hit on armor armor class with your weapon. I obviously didn't take it out. Then we have the conventional, Beyond the Conventional Mind, Gen Con. Gen Con 16. University of Wisconsin, Parkside. Did not get there in 83. Did get there in 84, my first Gen Con. And here's the general information. Parkside College was pretty small. Even when I went there in 84, this would be a year after this ad. I remember the college being pretty small for at least the area we were in was pretty small. Kind of cramped, and then they moved out of there not too long after that. And all the information for the con. You would hit issues of the Dragon, unfortunately, that sometimes didn't have a ton for you. We played a little top secret at the time, but it was not a main draw for me. So having several articles on spies and things like that didn't do much for me. Here we have a nice ad for what would you call the science fiction magazine that is 4-time Hugo winner George Sithers as its editor. You would call it Simply Amazing Stories, science fiction, when TSR was trying to be a bigger publisher than they had been. Some more about Gen Con. You would get some of these where you would just have all this information on one topic that would end up not being very on point for you. They happen. Role play with the best. Join the only official D&D game club from the RPGA. I don't remember why I didn't join it. I joined the RPGA in 2000 with the advent of 3rd edition. Very glad I did. I got some really good Greyhawk fanzine, not fanzines, but small, slick magazines for having joined it. RPGA was quite powerful in 3rd edition. And then the game conventions continuing on. While at Gen Con 16, shop at the Dungeon Hobby Shop, Lake Geneva. This is the store in Lake Geneva. Never been there. Been to Lake Geneva many times, just never got in there. Now TSR Hobbies offers you the best of both worlds, Strategy and Tactics and Ares magazines. I have a few issues of Ares, and then they rolled Ares into Dragon Magazine, I think in 84. TSR did not do real well being a publisher of these different magazines. Magazines were hurting in the early 80s, showing the first signs of cracking, and it didn't get better. So some more of the Gen Con stuff, the Strategist Club Awards, miniature open rules and categories, and then the end of it. And here's the gaming computer. I saw a few of these actually at our tables. People pulled them out of Dragon and assembled them and used them. They were pretty nice. I never wanted to wreck my dragons, and honestly, I like the DM chart. I hide my notes and my rolls behind my DM screen, so I never had a problem looking at it. What do you get when you cross a Dungeon Master with a computer? Programmed human creation without human hesitation. Article and program. Here you go. You can program your computer back in 1983. It's funny because my youngest son, Adam, is a computer science major. He's got his master's, so he's a computer scientist. I like showing him some of this old code because he gets a real kick out of it. Game Masters Hobbies, Inc. Adventure game specialists out of San Francisco, California. And new from Judges Guild, Tarantus. Judges Guild was out of Decatur, Illinois. I have a ton of their Traveler stuff. I only have a little bit of their D&D stuff. I think I have an issue or two of their monthly magazine, Pegasus. I don't know why the D&D stuff didn't rock my world. I love their Traveler stuff. Fantasy Lords by Grenadier. And a little bit of magic. Yes, Fantasy Lords was a nice line. I enjoyed those. Grenadier models. Some nice memories looking at some of these pictures. Like I said, my wife and I were dating at the time, and we would go lead figure shopping, as we used to call it. Just jump in the car and spend the day going to various hobby stores. Pick some up and then go back to one of our houses and paint. New for Starfleet Battles. Task Force Games. I did play Starfleet Battles. It was fun. It was actually a pretty good game. A buddy of mine owned it. We played it a fair amount. A Player Character and His Money by Louis Pulsifer. What to do with player characters that get too much cash. Space Opera, complete science fiction role-playing game from Fantasy Games Unlimited. Not a bad system, a little complicated. I'm going to be taking a look at that very soon on the channel. I've been talking about Space Opera for about a year now. I'm finally going to get around to it. And then Star Explorer, also from Fantasy Games Unlimited. Don't Get Beaten to a Pulp, Justice Incorporated from Hero Games, their version of the Shadow and Doc Savage and the Avenger and all kinds of cool pulp characters. You could even kind of throw the Phantom in there. He was comic strip, not pulp, but he fits in the mold. New Castle Creations, Villains and Vigilante Miniatures. Never got any V&V miniatures. I have a set of Champions minis. And then let's see, more on the article on how to part the player characters from their money. And the probabilities indicate we stock every imaginable role-playing game at the Dungeon Hobby Shop in Genoa City, Wisconsin. Nope, never got there. We've got a back issue sale, large selection of Dragon, White Dwarf, Different World, etc. And these were being sold in American Creative Games, P.O. Box in Mount Prospect, Illinois. I wonder if that was associated with Games Plus. And then we have Earthwood from GSI from Miami, Florida, finishing out how to part the characters from their money. And then we have Add Some Magic to Your Game from Bard Games and the Armory in Baltimore, Maryland, available at the fine hobby and game stores. Again, I like to look at these lists. Games Plus is on there. O'Fallon's Hobbycraft, never been there. Black & Company, Lyle's Hobby and Craft, and Bayer's. I might have been at Black & Company. I used to get down to Springfield quite a bit in the 80s for a job I was working, and I was down there 3 or 4 times a year, and I hit a couple of hobby stores, so I may have been there. SF Gaming Convention Calendar. So these are the different cons that are going around in the area. Pre-internet, this is how we got our information. Elysian Field by Britain Designs in Chicago, Illinois. Chicago had a lot of different game companies. And then, of course, Bandersnatch Leathers, San Antonio, Texas, a frequent Dragon advertiser. EastCon, Jonesboro State College, or Glassboro State College in Glassboro, New Jersey, just 30 miles east of Philadelphia. Never was there. And Gen Con 16 ad, Beyond the Conventional Mind. In case we missed it earlier in the magazine, when it's the entire center of the magazine. The SF Universe, an in-depth examination of the Star Frontiers game. Rules and systems, the game world, components, and more. I love Star Frontiers. It's a lot of fun. We played Traveler more, I admit that freely, but I had a lot of fun with Star Frontiers. Star Frontiers was the game you kind of could let your hair down. We had a campaign going, but it wasn't when we were worried about a ton of details. Consequently, myself as one of the game masters and a buddy of mine as the other game master, we were a little freer with ships and weaponry and things than we were in our Traveler games at the time. Although actually I was the one running the Traveler. He and I both ran the Star Frontiers. And then we have Cast Your Own Fantasy Figures from the Duncan Company in Calvert, Texas. And then continue on the excellent article on the Star Frontiers. Give It a Shot, Mercenaries, Spies, and Private Eyes. The Adventure of the Jade Jaguar, Solitaire Adventure, out of Scottsdale, Arizona. Blade is the publishing division of Flying Buffalo. Solo games were popular. They are popular again because of people having their groups move away. I couldn't tell you how many players I've lost over the years. Many regulars have moved on. I've been fortunate that I've been able to get new people to sit at our table. I've been lucky enough to been playing with a stable group now for about 25 years. Both my sons ended up joining it, but Roy, Craig, and I have formed the core of our group, and my wife for the last 25 years. There was a point when my boys were little that the group was down to myself and Craig, but Craig and I kept the flame alive. And then we met Roy, and then we had a couple other people come and go during that time. And probably about another 6 or 8 people came and went in the late 90s, early 2000s. And then we ended up with the group we have now. So yes, I've considered myself very blessed to have maintained a pretty steady group. The Standard for Fantasy Role-Playing Games Masters, coming in June. By the way, I'm not saying, this is from Bath, Maine. By the way, I'm not saying that by way of bragging. I'm saying that by way of saying, wow, have I been lucky. I realize there are many people that were not fortunate enough to meet other people that wanted to keep the games going. So we continue on with the article on Star Frontiers. I'm going to go back and reread this article. I haven't read this article in a long time. I love Star Frontiers. Dragon Tree Press. Playing aids to enliven any game system from Dragon Tree Press in Abilene, Texas. And finishing out the comparisons of Star Frontiers to Traveler, which is kind of funny that they've done that in a TSR magazine. That's how big Traveler was. Traveler was number 2 to D&D back at this time. Your source for a wide range of figures and games. The Tin Soldier in Springfield, Massachusetts. Different Worlds Magazine. TSR, we feature Dungeons & Dragons Traveler and RuneQuest articles. I have a few different worlds lying around here. RPGA ad again. And then off the shelf of comics, chaos, and classics. So we get the Dark Tangent, cute. Little play on the Three Musketeers there. Prelude to Chaos, I'm not familiar with either one of those guys. Three-Legged Hooch Dancer, don't know that one. The Walls of Air, I think I did. I read a fair amount of Barbara Hambly. I might have read that one. Orion Shall Rise, The Mists of Avalon, I did read. That's some pretty good inspirational stuff. I used to always look at these to get an idea for stuff to read. Fantasy, especially, was hard to come by in the early 80s. Dragonlance kind of broke that open because TSR started publishing their own. That helped a lot. And then, of course, we get Drizzt Do'Urden, Good or Bad, later in the 80s, and so on. An exciting new adventure awaits in Droids out of Arlington, Texas. And another ad for Gen Con 16. The Gamer's Guide. We got a bunch of ads here. This would, I don't think this is a real long running thing, but you got Miniatures Case for Griffin Games, Fantasy Worlds Unlimited of Orange, California, Discount Computer Software, the floppy disk. Yes, remember floppy disks? Great prices from Imaginative Mail Order in Hollyville, Connecticut. Game Master for your home computer. Wheat Cents, roll of 50 good, $3 per roll of 5 to, oh, penny promotions, that's interesting. War Games in West, out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. An awesome magic entity and the complete strategist. And new murder mystery series from Just Games in Garden City, New York. And then some more Mercenaries Guild, Lost in the World, Dark Horse, Fantasy Minis, Strategic Correspondence Games, and the Gamer's Guide, and then an index to advertisers. So this is something they were pushing for a while. And then, of course, What's New with Phil and Dixie. I always liked What's New with Phil and Dixie. They're doing on spies. This is a whole kind of a spy-themed issue. And then Wormy, the great Dave Trampier. This is a long Wormy. Four-page. And Encounter the all-new Advanced Dungeons & Dragons miniatures. Yeah, I bought a few of the AD&D minis, but I have to tell you, I thought that Relparth and Grenadier were kind of doing better work at the time. I have a few of these floating around. And then the back, of course, the Court of Ardor from Iron Crown Enterprises MERPS, the Middle-earth role-playing system. So there we have it. This was an issue of Dragon that I know at the time I was excited about the cover. I enjoyed the dragons. I enjoyed the Boulay article and the swords. But by and large, because it was so much emphasis on the spies, we weren't doing a ton with Top Secret in the summer of '83. It was mostly D&D. I remember being a little disappointed so much of this issue was given over to that. But that's one man's opinion. But that's all I've got today from page 121. I want to thank you for your time. Thanks for watching. Please leave comments. And I'll see you next time.